Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's guest speaker. We have Maria Klaus with us. She is a holistic health coach and hormone specialist. And this session is a follow-up to the month we spent on breast health education. And a lot of you were digging into all of that content. And I really wanted to bring Maria in to talk with you guys because I'm getting a lot of questions on next steps and what to do after you've identified that you may have a hormone challenge. And I think can be really game-changing to talk with someone who is a hormone specialist. I know in my own situation, I worked with my functional medicine doctor on hormone issues, and it didn't go very well. And I found it much more helpful to have a session with Maria and talk through my test results and what was going on. So I'm just going to...
Well, that's very, very kind of you to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it did not go well with her. And I think it's important to remember that doctors, aren't automatically hormone specialists. My doctor wasn't. And I just sort of assumed, oh, you're a functional medicine doctor. You can help me with anything. And, hormones weren't necessarily her thing. And we did some stuff that really kind of got me way off track. So I want to, some of the content I provide out to everybody is about being a really empowered patient and taking charge of your own health and not just deferring everything to other people, even if they are a doctor, because it's your body and it's your health and you know yourself better than anybody. And you really do need to learn some things for yourself. And so I hope that today is part of that. And Maria, I'm just going to turn it over to you so you can give them a little bit of background about your training and who you are, and then get into the hormones. And the audience of people who are listening is a mix of people who are just trying to take control of their own health, and then some health coaches who want to learn a little bit more about hormones as well.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, I went into perimenopause, and it was pretty brutal. And I sought out a well-known doctor in New York City, multi-published on Park Avenue, because I was always holistic, and I knew that the corner doctor was not going to be a good fit for me. He was just going to be a pill pusher. And that's what he is today. Really nice guy, really affable, but doesn't really do anything besides write scripts. So trekked into New York City, which is not too hard for me. And I met with this doctor, and, it was very, very, very expensive, even though he supposedly cut me a deal. And he wrote some prescriptions for me for hormones, which I am certainly not categorically against the use of supplemental hormones at all. And lots of supplements, and, wanted to put me on Boniva, which is a bone health drug, which can cause necrosis of the jaw, which I was shocked. And when I went into his office, one of the first, and it's a holistic medical center, okay? One of the first things they asked me, and this was like the day after Christmas that I went, was, do you want a flu shot? That should have been my first red flag. Like, why are you asking me if I want a flu shot? You're supposed to be holistic, anyway. So that really, I should have walked out then. The visit was almost an epic fail because, he just kind of threw stuff at me, didn't educate me. And interestingly enough, obviously I can't throw stuff, hormones or anything like that, at any of my clients. My focus is education. Of course, do nutrition and supplements as well. But so threw stuff at me, bunch of supplements, bunch of hormones, couple of drugs, and kind of sent me on my way. And every time I needed to get like a prescription refill or a quick question, there was like a $25 charge. And again, so it's a business. I don't fault them for making money by any means, but that just felt off to me at the time. And it just wasn't a good fit for me. I just didn't feel supported, right? So I went back to Institute for Integrative Nutrition. That was a great, nice little start. I think it's where I met people like you, right?
Yeah.
Right? You and so many other people that are like really dear friends, but it wasn't enough education for me. And I just did several trainings afterwards. My main training was a functional diagnostic nutrition program training. And then I've studied with, I have a functional medicine mentor, and I've done many courses on methylation and biochemistry and menopause. And, that's really what I do now is I support women, I educate them. I use the Dutch test, which is a hormone test. It also looks at some nutritional markers, some neurotransmitters. And then I just kind of, just educate women on what their hormone issues are. Where I tend to really do my best work and shine is going to be with women like over 40 that are dealing with perimenopause and menopause and fatigue and weight loss resistance and, just things that come alongside in that era. I've had younger clients. I even sometimes have men. Sometimes women refer their husbands to me, but that's like not my strong suit, so to speak. Although I can help them, but like my passion really lies in helping women over 40, because that's when the going tends to get tough.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you brought up weight loss resistance, and, typically women here, I think, calories in, calories out. So if you're not losing weight, it's your fault because you're not exercising enough or you're eating too much, and it's as simple as that. And it's just not. So I think it's healthy for people to understand that hormones can be the cause of so many things, including weight. And, can you talk a little bit more about other things that have hormone imbalance at its root cause?
Yeah, so endometriosis can be, just too much estrogen, too much of the bad type of estrogen. PMS, whereas like we think we know a lot about it, the research is not fully definitive on what causes it. But I do think it's very highly correlated with just very low progesterone, right? And, just too much estrogen as well. So PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is just really the most common reproductive disorder of women in fertile years. So that is actually typically more, so when we think hormones, we often think like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, but really the hormone that's at the root of most issues of PCOS is insulin, right? So women who have PCOS are usually insulin resistant, right? But there could be progesterone and estrogen imbalances as well. But hormones control everything from breathing, respiration, to your heartbeat, to your libido. And just as a little aside, like libido is not just about testosterone. Like I've seen women with perfectly fine levels of testosterone who have no libido. So libido is multifactorial. I just wanted to throw that in. But like I said, heartbeat, respiration, growth, menstruation, menopause, pregnancy. Like most of us, when we think of hormones, we think of, monthly menstruation, menopause, and pregnancy, but it controls everything. You have receptors for estrogen pretty much on every cell of the body. Like your optic nerve has receptors for estrogen. Your vocal cords have receptors for estrogen. So that like 70 or 80-year-old, like old lady voice, I'm trying to be silly here, that is a decline in estrogen, right? So the voice box is actually influenced by estrogen as well. So estrogen actually really interfaces with our immune system. Okay, I recently did a post about how menopause in and of itself is a chronic low-level state of inflammation, right? That's because our estrogen is pretty much gone at that point, or at an extremely low level. Estrogen helps maintain the dendritic, spines of neurons, which helps with brain health and, prevents against cognitive decline. I was just messaging my sister. Sorry, she's calling. I'm glad it was silent. Yeah, so estrogen is way more than about breasts and hips and pregnancy and menstruation. There's estrogen and progesterone, our sex hormones, really have, wide and various influences throughout the body.
And what are the top things you see when estrogen is either dominant or just imbalanced?
So menstrual migraines would be a big thing. Some women will will have some weight loss resistance, again, when the estrogen is too high. PMS is huge for that. Again, I see that with estrogen dominance. And just so we can clarify, estrogen dominance is just an imbalance of estrogen to progesterone. You can actually be estrogen dominant, but have low estrogen. Mm-hmm. And that really,
can you say a little bit more about that? Because I think that's an important point that's easy to miss?
So you can have low estrogen and even lower progesterone. And that's really, yeah.
So you look for them to be imbalanced with each other. Is that more important than it being within a certain range?
No, both are important. So like, for instance, in the case of estrogen dominance where you have low estrogen, you can have, low estrogen comes with its own symptoms. Some classic ones would be hot flashes, would be vaginal dryness, would be low mood. Not everyone, again, but just classic symptoms, right? But then if you're estrogen dominant, you could also have symptoms that kind of appear like high estrogen, which would be like the weight loss resistance, could be menstrual flooding. So you can definitely have both. That's actually, to be honest with you, like low estrogen and estrogen dominant, it's a lot less common than people think. What's more common is that you kind of have this high level of estrogen and this level of progesterone that is either low or is just not enough to balance it. We really want like at least 100 times more progesterone in the body than we do estrogen. So you can have in-range progesterone, but it's still not enough to, I say, like kind of shelter and cover the estrogen that you have.
Okay. And this might be a good time to touch on the Dutch test. That's the test that you use to learn all of this information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
why is that test your favorite? And what other tests might be people getting if they just go see their doctor?
Yeah, so I mean, blood tests work as well to determine estrogen dominance. Blood tests are, can certainly work with like monitoring hormone therapies and things like that. The Dutch test, though, gives us a lot more data. So so estrogen is a bit of a misnomer. There's many different types of estrogens in the body, like dozens, right? There are three main ones: estrone, estradiol, estriol, and then those actually have breakdown products. They're actually called metabolites. Okay, you can't see metabolites on a blood test. And if you make something called 2-hydroxyestrone, which is a good, safe metabolite, that's a good thing. And the Dutch test can show you that. And that's a relative risk for cancer, not an absolute risk. Relative risk because, you can be doing everything right. Not all cancers are estrogen positive. So you can have perfect estrogen metabolism and still get breast cancer or ovarian cancer. But still, your risks are increased if you have poor estrogen metabolism. Blood cannot show you estrogen metabolism. Only urine can. Saliva cannot show you metabolism of estrogen. Only urine can. So the Dutch test, that's like one of the main reasons why I like it.
Okay. And the Dutch test also shows you do you feel like we should touch on the pathway thing that the Dutch test gets into? Like if it's going on this pathway or that pathway, or is that too advanced?
So I think it's a little bit advanced, and I did basically, that's what I was hinting at. So you have, so the Dutch test shows three main breakdown products: 2, 4, and 16 hydroxyestrone. 2 is really good. We want a lot of that. We want at least 70%. We will see an exact numerical value. 4 is really a bad estrogen. We can never have 0, but we want that to be under 10%. And 16 is a bit of a nuanced estrogen. It's a little bit good, it's a little bit bad. We don't want it too high, we don't want it too low, because it is the estrogen that maintains bone. And again, you're gonna get these exact ratios. And here's the deal: unlike most of your like blood work, like your comprehensive metabolic panel that you get on an annual basis from the doctor, this is very, very changeable and usable data. Like there are things that you can do if your estrogen metabolism is unfavorable. Like you can change that. Supplements, specific supplements, and foods can absolutely change that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the Dutch test gets a little complicated and advanced, but someone like Maria knows how to read it and kind of bottom lines it for you. And tells you what it says, what it means, and then gives recommendations, right, on how to make things more comfortable or get things back in balance.
Yeah, and what I can do is I can give you, I can remove patient details, or I should say client details. I don't like to say patient. I like client. I can remove client details, and I can show you an example of like a report that I write up and show you how detailed it is.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So if someone did want to do that with you, what does that look like? How do they work with you?
Yeah, so I have a little program, and it's like 2 sessions with me. And the first session, you sign up. So you sign up, you pay. So right now this program includes your Dutch test. So I have the lab drop ship it to you. And so you sign up, you pay, right away you get a very in-depth intake form. You fill that out. After that's filled out, we have your first session. First session is like on the short side, like no more than a half hour. I get to know you a little bit better, kind of fine-tune some of the things on your intake form. And we decide when you take the test. The timing is important depending on your fertile stage of life. Okay. And I just kind of get you used to it. Like I can do this stuff in my sleep. But for someone who doesn't like know it, understand it, like this is new territory. So I just really make sure you understand what you're doing and you do it correctly. Okay. You do the test, you mail it back. I get the results in my lab portal. And then we have your second session. And the second session is a big deal. We're talking an hour, sometimes an hour and 10 minutes. I explain it to you. And I also have your written protocol, which is usually like I think it's 2 to 3 pages, where I kind of, and I'm going to give you an example of that so you can see what it is I do. Yeah. And that is my program. Do you want me to tell you the price? I'm not 100% sure. I can ballpark it. I think it's like, so 2 sessions with me, your Dutch test, your written protocol. So that is $7.95, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry. I should know my price off the top of my head.
But just to give people an idea.
That does include your test. Now, if you had to buy your test on your own, that test would cost you about $400.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're getting 2 sessions with me. It takes me at least an hour to write up your protocol. So it accounts for my time behind the scenes as well. So I think that's actually a pretty good bargain because, like I said, it does include the price of your Dutch test. So there's no other out-of-pocket expense besides like any foods or supplements that I want you to, have as part of your protocol.
Yeah, and for those of you who are thinking about doing this, I think it's an investment in feeling better today, but it's also an investment long term because you're going to learn more about what's going on with your body. And if something's really out of whack, catching it early versus later is going to save you a lot of pain and energy and time and money later on. So definitely consider it, especially if you know for sure you've got hormone issues. Maria specializes in this. She works on this every single day. Honestly, I have done a session with her and it was more helpful to me than going to the doctor, like I mentioned earlier. So like sometimes you just gotta go with someone who's all over it, and willing to spend some time. She's not, with doctors, it's kind of like in and out, 10 minutes, quick, and they just want to give you the quick fix versus having someone you can like be with for a whole hour and go through it in detail and ask all of your questions and make sure you really understand it, I think is a completely different experience. And
that's very, very sweet of you to say that. And I will just say in terms of the Dutch test, it's like extremely empowering for women. And I make sure that you really understand. And one thing I just want to very, very briefly touch on, because I could do a whole hour on this and it's way too technical, but this is one of the things I do in my second session is make sure women understand this technical part. But the Dutch test is hands down the best test to look at adrenal issues. And adrenals produce hormones, just the way ovaries produce hormones, right? And there is such a massive interface with your health and your sex hormones and your adrenal hormones. And that is a huge part of what I do is really looking at the status of your adrenal glands and how does that, what's going on in your body. So that is pretty much just as valuable as I said regarding like how you can see estrogen breaking down in the body. It's just like looking at, there's so many different adrenal markers, and I just tie that in and really correlate it with your symptoms and help you understand what's going on.
Awesome. And if someone wanted to hire you to interface with their doctor, do you do that? Do you do consults like that with their physicians?
So I'm perfectly willing, so like we're having a Zoom session here to absolutely have a doctor on board. I think that's great. Yeah, perfectly happy to do that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And then you sent me a link to something that I'm going to share with everybody. Can you just talk about that for a second and explain what that is?
I think the link that I sent you was the link to book the Dutch test program that I just described to you, which includes the test and the sessions with me. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So when you guys get the follow-up email, you'll get that link and you can click on that free resource for Maria. And then is your website still Flourish and Nourish?
No, it's just my name. It's just mariaclaps.com.
Okay, so they can get more information about you there. And is that where they would go to initiate that 2-session mini program that you have?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I have that on there. But I have a contact form on my website. They can contact me through there. They can follow me on Instagram. It's Maria_Claps. And that should come right up. And it says Expert Hormone Whiz after that. But if you just do Maria_Claps, I think my Instagram account should come up. And I'm always like sharing a lot of information on Instagram regarding hormones and stuff like that. And then if you do go to my website, which is mariaclaps.com, right, one of the top tabs is a hormone testing guide. And that's super valuable. It's like a 2-pager. I think the first might be a cover page. I'm not sure. But it explains the 4 different methods of hormone testing. So you've got blood, you've got saliva, you've got urine, which is, 24-hour urine. And then you've got dried urine, which is basically Dutch testing. And there is another company that does a similar dried urine test, but I'm favorable to the company that does the Dutch test. And I explain the pros, the cons, and the approximate price of each of those tests. And I just want to say that I also had it checked over by my friend who's an integrative OBGYN, and he gave me the sign off. So the guide it's doctor checked, it's really easy to understand language, and I think it's just really helpful because a lot of the information in terms of hormone testing on the internet is a little bit outdated.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. Not all, and I don't want to like make it as like I'm like the only one that's got the up-to-date information. That's not my point, but we've got like the internet has blogs from like 5-10 years ago, and that stuff is still accessible. That's some of that stuff is outdated.
Yeah, that's probably true for just about anything that you're Googling for our health stuff. We need to keep in mind. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really, really, really appreciate it. This is going to be of huge value to my tribe. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.